Despite all of the hate that some of them get, there are some pretty awesome female characters in anime. Whether it's Tomoko from Watamote, Chisato and Takina from Lycoris Recoil, or, well, just about anybody from Black Clover, there are a lot of cool, badass, lovable female characters. Sadly, though, not all of them get the love they deserve, and sometimes it's just a mess. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Is really, really guilty of this. And that's why we're here to talk about Alexis Rhodes. Yeah, it's a shorter intro. I couldn't come up with much of anything, but just sit through the intro and we'll get started. Alexis is an Obelisk Blue student at Duel Academy. Compared to all the other Obelisk Blue students, she actually is relatively nice to people in the lower dorms like Slifer and Raw. It's shown early on that she's close friends with Zane, and she's very fascinated by Jade and Yuki. I mean, how could you not be fascinated by him and his slang talk? Anyways, she actually ends up dueling him very early on in the series, and even though she loses, she admits it was a fun time. In this episode, it was actually revealed that Jaden and Cyrus were trespassing on the Obelisk Blue girls' dorm, and that had Alexis won, she would have ratted them out. But she later reveals that that actually wasn't true because it's too much fun with them around. It's a nice, sweet moment. She uses a Cyber Girl deck, which has a lot of girls doing dance-related activities. It doesn't sound the most interesting, but there are some pretty clever ways she uses them, especially with her ritual monsters. Yeah, Alexis is one of the few people to actually use ritual monsters compared to most people in the anime. Or, in real life. She has two friends named Jasmine and Mindy, and they don't really do anything in the series. They basically are vain and talk about boys. Mindy at one point was even revealed to have a crush on Bastion, cause, I guess equations just really get to her. It's also revealed that Alexis has somewhat of a troubled past. She has an older brother named Atticus who went missing around the abandoned dorm, and we'll usually see her trying to find clues as to how to find him. It really gets us to care about her because it's not just her doing nothing, she's actually doing her best to be proactive, for the most part. She ends up getting kidnapped by someone named Titan. No, not them, that would have been great though. And Jaden ends up having to rescue her. Oh well, too bad, but at least she tried. Hopefully she won't get sidelined or kidnapped too often, because that would start to ruin her character a bit. When Jaden and Cyrus get in trouble for trespassing on the abandoned dorm, Alexis does her best to stand up for them and even wants to duel alongside Jaden, but ultimately her attempts are fruitless. She ends up sitting next to Bastion during the duel, and she does nothing but basically criticize him the whole time. Why she gotta be hard on my man Bastion? Okay, I probably shouldn't even be talking about this because it's not necessary to her character, but it does have a lot to do with how they treat her and her character. But Alexis ends up being the attention of, oh sweet god, Harrington Rosewood, the tennis star. He gets very jealous over her friendship with Jaden and ends up challenging him to a duel, and the winner gets to be Alexis's fiancé. Not that she has a say in it, but who cares what she thinks? It's not even like, look, I didn't love when Mai had to duel Jean-Claude Van Damme, but at least she dueled him on her own and stood up for herself. Alexis just gets saved by Jaden, apparently. As dumb as this episode is, though, I can't fully hate it. Some of the tennis cards are so ridiculous that I find myself laughing. Speaking of laughing, Harrington and Jaden have a laugh off this episode, and I realize they both might be insane.
This is pathetic.
Now they're seeing who can laugh the longest.
Come on, Harrington, just imagine me tickling you.
The next part of Alexis' story comes in the Shadow Riders arc. She ends up becoming one of the people to hold the 7 spirit keys, and actually it's a pretty cool moment because even if she hasn't won a duel on screen yet, we still get a sense of just how much trust the school has in these kids. Is the school at all responsible for putting kids in harm's way? Not in the slightest, but if I was going to point out all of the flaws of the school, we'd be here all day. And as it turns out, the very first Shadow Rider happens to be Night Shroud, who's actually Alexis's brother, brainwashed in disguise. I should really like this moment, but Alexis doesn't even get to duel him. Jaden does. And there's no real reason just outside the fact of Jaden's the main character. And I love Jaden, but Alexis could have had this duel. Anyways, Nightshroud is defeated, he goes back to being Atticus, but things still aren't all that great. Even though he's back to being Atticus, he still doesn't have his memories, and he's pretty knocked out for the next few episodes. Before we get to Alexis's next part of the story, I just kind of want to bring this up. In Crowler's duel against Camula, there are two different things Alexis says depending on what version you watch. In the Japanese version, Alexis points out how worried she is for Crowler going up against Camula because she seems very dangerous. But in the English version, Alexis just comments about how terrible of a duelist Crowler actually is.
Great, he'll beat her easy, right?
Wrong, Sai. Crowler may talk a big game, but he plays a terrible one.
I don't really know why the dub decided to make her so much more, I guess, mean-spirited towards people like Crowler and Bastion and a few others, but it really just comes off as not all that necessary. I mean, Crowler may not have won a duel at that point in the series, but he was still a teacher, and Alexis had won, well, let's see, the same number of duels at that point. 0. Moving on. Alexis ends up dueling Titan, who came back and is infinitely more lamer this time because he actually has supernatural powers and everything, but she also beats him in a duel, and thanks to their deal, Titan restores Atticus's memories. Nice to know she got to do something to help her brother, and she immediately regrets it because when she dresses up as one of the Harpy ladies, he starts taking pictures of her. It's a pretty cute brother-sister dynamic the two have, with Atticus being very embarrassing. But honestly, I never saw it as that, because maybe that's just because I love Atticus so much. He's such a delight on screen. In another filler episode, she ends up dueling against the Gambler, and we end up learning a little bit more about her backstory. She ended up having a scarf that was stolen from him, and that scarf was given to her by her mom. And of course, at the end, when she beats him, it's revealed that he was in love with her, because these are the only real stories Alexis gets, sadly. But you know, maybe I'm being a little too harsh. What does she do next? She loses to the 7th Shadow Rider and gets demolished. Okay, not what I would have done, but let's see what happens. Oh, and I almost forgot one of my favorite moments with Alexis. When Jaden duels a pirate, okay, I should not be saying that just so casually, the pirate offers Jaden a job working for him and offers him a lot of money, and Bastion and Alexis comment on it.
That is a lot of booty.
I beg your pardon?
You know, it's nice to know it hasn't even been 10 episodes, and we're already getting another person with a crush on Alexis. And it's shit, Princeton. No, we're not doing that joke again. I've talked about this duel before. Alexis ends up beating him, destroying his heart, but things go well until the keys start to awaken and Kagemaru comes out, and that's pretty much Alexis' role for the season. Next, during Season 2, Alexis gets a completely different story. Her brother and Crowler tried to turn her into a dueling idol. Stuff like this is just absurd, but it does get a couple of laughs out of me, especially when Atticus shows up singing his own version of the GX theme song,
chilling out on my boat with a guitar, yeah!
And ends up calling a certain someone a sissy.
Hey, sissy! Hold on! Who's he calling a sissy?
Me. He's my brother.
I knew that.
Hassleberry does not approve. Alexis, understandably, is pretty upset about this, and tries to get the guys to see her side, as in she doesn't want to be an idol. And Bastion points out how Alexis doesn't really know how to carry a tune. He tried his best to help, and he got smacked for it. Rude. Based on that exchange, though, it's now my headcanon that Duel Academy has karaoke night, and Bastion is the only person willing to tell Alexis that she can't sing. Tragic. She also becomes an honorary member of the Slifer Red dorm when she tries to duel Aster Phoenix to save it. Unfortunately, she gets interrupted by Jaden, who wants a rematch with Aster. Ordinarily, I would be upset about this, but Alexis didn't have that much to do with the story at this point, so I was okay with Jaden taking this one, at least in the moment. What I am not okay with is Alexis getting brainwashed by Princeton and joining the Society of Light after he does. What makes this all the more frustrating is the story implications from this. Princeton ended up being brainwashed due to the fact that he really wanted to beat Jaden and uses that drive to basically get himself brainwashed by Sartorius. Bastion ended up getting brainwashed due to the fact that he lost the duel and felt that he wasn't being respected and fully wanted to take his career back on track. Alexis just gets brainwashed. No real story or anything, she just gets brainwashed. Even after hearing a fantastic song by Atticus, which is not appreciated by anybody. Well, except me and Jaden.
Alexis, Lexi, how I wish you could see that no one but you can control your destiny.
Sadly, even after getting brainwashed, Alexis doesn't do a whole lot. We'll at least see other Society of Light members dueling and brainwashing other people, but Alexis sort of just walks around and sets up duels between Jaden and other members, like the 3-time video game champ Lorenzo. Or, stop me if you've heard this one, another guy who likes Alexis and wants to prove himself. Okay, I'm starting to notice a really annoying theme with Alexis, but regardless, Game Show Bob banter. He's in love with Alexis and duels Jaden with a game show deck. I know a lot of people hate this episode, but to me it honestly falls into the realm of so bad it's good. Especially when Jaden points out that he hopes they cancel this show. Oh, so that's why the dub got canceled. That's unfortunate. She does end up winning a duel against the Maitre D', and it's revealed that she isn't fully under Sartorius' control, until he completely brainwashes her and gets rid of her memories. Like I've said before at this point, since Manjome was the one to brainwash Alexis in the first place, I would have loved to have seen him redeem himself and save her in the end. Kind of like what he said he wanted to do. But Jaden ends up doing it, because he's the main character and he has to do everything, I guess. They did kind of try to incorporate the other characters, because Manjome ended up giving Jaden Ojama Black to use, while Atticus used a card called Swing of Memories, which is a card that they used in their childhood when they dueled against each other. But sadly, those don't seem to do the trick. Things don't get much better in Season 3. One part of the story has Alexis getting trapped and almost drowned at one point. You'd think she'd take this seriously, but in the dub, we just can't have that, can we?
Just my luck. The one time I forget to pack my bikini.
We also learn that she's one of Professor Stein's favorite students because she was one of the few who showed up. Because Jaden's influence of skipping class all the time got to everyone, and eventually even Alexis started skipping class. This technically doesn't count as somebody falling in love with Alexis, but it is weird how this keeps happening around her character. Like everybody else though, she ends up getting sacrificed thanks to Jaden wanting to find Jessie, but she's later revived towards the end of the season. Oh, I almost forgot about another gem. During Jaden's duel against Viper, we get her to say, "Hooah!" I don't know who decided that, but once again, I'm not going to question it. Sadly, Season 4 is where the dub stops and we stop getting great gems like that. But also in Season 4, she tries to get Jaden to go back to his fun-loving self, rather than the more serious character he was during that season. I appreciated that she tried her best to get Jaden back to his normal self, and that she tried to help him, but she really did not go about it the right way. This is when they really start to show that Alexis can be a bit aggressive and it actually can turn a lot of people off towards her. But she also has another story, if you want to call it that, in Season 4. Basically, her next story is trying to confess to Jaden. There's a tag team tournament, and she is part of Jaden's team. But rather than them working together as friends and comrades, Jaden ends up sacrificing a lot of her cards and only ends up using his own cards. They're not working together as a team, despite the fact that they keep winning, which really tells you a lot about the rest of the students if they can't beat two bickering teammates. It's the finals, Jaden and Alexis versus Hasselberry and Blair, and through some shenanigans, Blair ends up switching partners with Alexis. It's now Alexis and Hasselberry versus Jaden and Blair. Jaden seems to be having more fun with this, until Alexis switches partners back. God, you have to feel bad for Hasselberry. Nobody seemed to want to be his partner. And towards the end, it seems like she wants to confess to Jaden after they win, but she decides not to do it. Some of you have noticed I'm not really that big on this story, and that's because, truth be told, I'm going to lose a lot of you here. I never saw the appeal of Jaden and Alexis as a ship. Not that they're unlikable characters by any stretch of the imagination, but they just get so few moments together compared to other ships in the series and other ships in anime. I just never saw it. You could maybe count on one hand how many romantic interactions they had between each other, especially in the dub. The sub didn't seem nearly as interested in it at times. It's not that they're a bad ship, they just feel so underdeveloped that I don't feel like I want to root for them to get together. I see it with other couples. Sol and Maka, I kinda see it with. Brendan and May from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I definitely see it with. Hichikata and Mitsuba from, I don't want to talk about that one. The point being, Alexis and Jaden, no thanks. Lastly, we even learned that she wants to become a teacher when she gets older, and she has a fear that her students might not respect her. Really? You have a fear that your students might not respect you when you've shown little to no respect for almost any teacher in this school?
Crowler may talk a big game, but he plays a terrible one.
I don't necessarily just mean Alexis, I kind of just mean everybody in this school. But thanks to Jaden and the others, she ends up avoiding the darkness from, well, darkness, and learns that even though there will be trials and tribulations, she'll just have to keep pushing forward. She ends up graduating alongside everyone else, and she gets a copy of Yugi's deck alongside Cyrus and Chaz. Sorry about that. But she refuses and uses her own deck like everyone else. And that's Alexis. You know, I defended Manjome's character development because it is legitimately good outside of some flaws. Bastion I was really sad about, but I still find myself enjoying most of the stuff he's given. Alexis isn't really given that much to do compared to other characters. I think it's probably due to the fact that a lot of GX characters have an arc of some kind. Manjome standing up to his brothers, Bastion trying to be relevant, Cyrus, well, I'll talk about Cyrus another day, but for better or for worse, a lot of these characters had arcs of some kind. Alexis had episodes dedicated to her, but I don't feel like she ever fully got an arc where she could have showcased just how much she's grown, or wants to grow. Maybe if Yu-Gi-Oh! GX got a Dark Side of Dimensions type movie, maybe a lot of these characters could have gotten more to work with, or we could have shown just how much they've grown. But until then, Alexis Rhodes, definitely not the worst character I've ever seen, but could have been a bit better. And hey, at least at this point, I'm just glad she actually won a duel. There are so many other characters who could have done better and just have done so much worse, so Alexis, maybe she got off lucky. But what do you guys think of Alexis? I know she's a really popular character, and I haven't been the nicest in this video, but I'd still like to know what you guys think. Do you guys think she deserved more? Do you guys think she maybe even deserved less? What are your thoughts on Alexis Rhodes? Let me know in the comments, like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know what other Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters you'd like me to talk about. It doesn't just have to be GX. I promise one day I will get to Anakaboom, but until then, take it easy, have a good one. This is Alex from Anime Egotists saying, please bring back Mega Man Star Force, like, as soon as you can.